What's up, guys, and welcome to the Mike Sports Podcast Show. I am your host, Mike. Good to be back on the pod. Want to welcome all listeners. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe to my podcast, um, Mike 901 on YouTube, and you can also follow me on Facebook. I do appreciate all those who follow me on Facebook and subscribers on YouTube. Lots to get into. I'm not going to get into every single thing. I'm gonna dibble and dabble a little bit with basketball, football, a little bit of everything. Um, but a lot going on in the realm of sports, and just want to jump the pod just to share my thoughts, my opinions on the things that are going on, and also give a preview for the love of the game with my co-host Greg and partner Greg Rufus. Also subscribe to his podcast, Throw It Down Big Fella, as well as For the Love of the Game podcast, and all of the other podcasts that he has going on involving football. XO uh, podcast where he discusses football, everything football related. But today on my podcast, the Mike Sports Podcast Show, I want to touch on Memphis Tigers, of course, the Memphis Grizzlies, and some NFL news, some college football news. Uh, please feel free to recycle back to some of the previous posts that I've already posted on Facebook as well as YouTube. Um, a lot of it's foretelling, and I really like the engagement in those posts in those previous posts. So please like and subscribe, like those pages, and comment on those pages, those videos, and post as well. But for today, for this podcast, uh, we're going to start off with the Memphis Tigers. Memphis Tigers had a huge win versus Baylor, and got to admit that I uh, was not expecting the Tigers to win the game. I really just wanted them to compete and fight, just like we expect them to each and every game. Um, but they pulled out with the victory, and kudos to uh, Penny Hardaway and the Tigers basketball program. Winning this game was very important in a lot of ways. Uh, it's well documented, well known that Memphis is trying to get into a big conference, and Baylor being in the Big Ten, Big 12. We've been trying to get in that conference, uh, negotiate our way in that conference, and so to beat a Big 12 school is a big deal. To beat any Power Five team is a big deal. We have Louisville, our rival, coming up on Saturday at 2:30 at Louisville. That should be a well attended game. And I mean, it's a rivalry game. There's a lot of history in that matchup with Louisville. Should be a fun matchup. And I hope that we bring the same energy that we had, the same competitiveness that we had at home versus Baylor. If we bring it to Louisville and really show out there, maybe get an upset there. Uh, but go Tigers, go! And I hope we can just steadily improve as the season goes along. Uh, this year, I think the benchmark is still the same. We would just want to keep competing, keep working, and win the conference championship. That's the big thing. It's going to be very, very hard this year with the limited amount of opportunities to improve in the net and just getting ranked. Period. Unless we just continue to win. But if we just keep competing, keep working hard, I'm not really concerned about the Tigers going forward. Next, to the Grizzlies. Just an observation from the Grizzlies because the Grizzlies have been playing pretty solid, pretty well. Everybody is chipping in evenly. Zach Edey's been playing great. Um, Cedric Coward, he's been consistent, playing well. Cam Spencer has been playing well. Everyone's doing their role, and everyone's doing their role and pretty much playing well within the system of Coach Ti's system. The minute distribution is somewhat still the same. It hasn't really changed that much from what I see, but we're winning games. It's not because we don't have um, Jaren Jackson Jr. on the floor. Jaren Jackson hasn't played exceptionally well. Um, he's not blowing it out with 25 points per game, et cetera, or anything like that. But he's playing within the role, I guess, and we're winning games. Friday, uh, Ja comes back, and unfortunately, ZD is out, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the one observation, because I'm watching Desmond Bain and I watch Desmond Brooks, two former Grizzlies. Desmond Bain, he had a slow start with the Magic, but is starting to play great basketball. He is really trending upward and really showing his potential and leadership over with the Magic, and kind of making it seem like, man, we regret making that trade or trading him away with the way that he's been playing. Um, some games getting over 30 points a game. And we traded that away. It's kind of like, man, I wish we still had that. And then you look over at Dylan Brooks and you see he's a culture builder just wherever he goes. He was a part of the culture in Memphis when was sent. We let him walk. He went to Houston. He was a culture builder there, and he's a culture builder right now with Phoenix. And I mean, so much so, Houston made a video tribute for him. And, in the midst of his career, normally you see those type of videos, towards the end of your career as a thank you, but he's getting a thank you tribute for his lone season, his short time in Houston. And so I think that is significant. It says a lot about him being just an impact player. And that's another player that the Grizzlies let go. And to have Ja in a lot of trade rumors, he's been rumored in trades, since the LA game. Trades to Minnesota, trades to the Miami Heat. And it appears that everything is normal. Everyone's in a happy place. Ja is engaged. Ja is taking on a leadership role on the bench. He's helping guys, helping the young guys, helping the rookies. We hear the rookies talk about how much Ja has helped them these last 2 or 3 weeks, just answering questions, just being a leader, and is in Ja, passing out tickets to the game for the game tonight versus Utah, and it's hard to imagine, it's hard to see um, Ja being traded after all of that. The cohesiveness in the locker room seems to be good. Everyone seems to be getting along. Everyone seems to be happy, and we got a good stretch of games coming up where, again, we could be over 500 with Ja back in the lineup. And so, there are a lot of pressures on Ja to perform, to fit in the system, and to comply with the rotation minutes. Because, like I said before, I haven't really seen much of a change in Ti's rotation and minute distribution. I don't. It'll be interesting to see if Ja plays over 35 minutes uh, a game. He might average, I don't know, 30 or less potentially, especially with the Grizzlies being cautious about his calf injury. I'm pretty sure he's going to be on a minutes restriction of some sort. So a lot of pressure on Ja to perform well. Um, with all of the talk, all of the speculation, all of the rumors, all the negativity, we just expect Ja to just dominate. We just want him to dominate in whatever form or fashion, whether it's points, assists, whatever it is, defense, just dominate. Just dominate. Get in the lane, get to the free throw line and just dominate the game. Um, but I say all that because I would really hate to see Ja get traded, considering the fact that we're seeing some of the best basketball from Dylan Brooks. We know what he's done as far as the culture building, and we need that culture in our locker room right now. We're even though we're playing well, I would love to have that culture back in our locker room. We need Desmond Bain right now. We need a consistent shooter who can put up 30 some points a game. And I really hope that as a fan base, um, we can be patient with Ja and Jaren Jackson Jr. and just the pieces that we have around them with Zach Edey and Cedric and Wells and having a veteran like KCP is really good for our team. I'm hoping that we can build off of this group because it's very rare that we get a Cedric Howard. It's very rare to get a Zach Edey producing at the way that they're producing right now. So I really hope that we can be patient with these guys because every player that we've had after they've reached a certain point, a certain peak, we either trade them or let them go, and then we see them play their best basketball in a different uniform, and it's rough, you know. It's rough seeing them succeed. Even though you're rooting for them, it's rough seeing them succeed in a different uniform when they could have did the exact same thing in the Grizzlies uniform. That being said, with the injury report, it's really, really frustrating that Zach Edey is out for a month. Um, this report coming out that he has soreness in his ankle, and right at the point where Josh is coming back, it is really frustrating as a fan for this report to come out because I mean, based off of what Zach Edey is saying, he's saying he feels he's like at 85%. I believe he was already on a minutes restriction. And then this report to come out that he's going to be out for a month because of soreness really just dampens the mood. I mean, it's really a Debbie Downer. I mean, right when Ja is coming back, right when there's so much pressure on Ja, to perform. We know how well Ja does with the pick and roll. Now putting uh, backups and just different players in their role that don't really fit their role. We're putting Ja in a position where he doesn't have everybody around him that can help him and the team play better, look better, and win games. We weren't really looking that good without Zach Edey in the lineup. And so for this report to come out that he's going to take pretty much, he's taking a month off. He's going to be reevaluated in a month because of soreness. And I mean, injuries, they're part of the game. I mean, if you're standing on your feet all day, you're sore. And I'm not comparing, I know he had surgery. I broke my foot and I had soreness when I went back to work. But that didn't stop me from going to work, and I'm not trying to compare basketball to what every modern day person does by just, standing and walking and things like that. I know there are stresses to the game of basketball, but every player is sore after a workout. And so it's just frustrating, um, as a fan that he's going to be out for a month. You know, if it was the playoffs, I wonder would this be announced? Are we at, I could see if it was like a game or two, but a whole month to reevaluate and pretty much rest a sore ankle that Edie himself says he feels like he's like 85%. And that's coming from the reporter to Michael Cole. He's reported that Zach Edey said those things. So, it's just frustrating that it's come out that he's gonna be out a month. Um, but anyway, go Grizzlies. Hopefully the next month, we're above 500 and we get some of our guys back and healthy. Um, we got so many players that are out. Ty Jerome. Hopefully we get Pippen back. In a month's time, we get those players back, and our backcourt uh, will look really good. Hopefully, in a month's time, we can stay healthy with the current players that we have. So we'll see. Other storylines in the NBA. Giannis, and I know, I'm sure me and Greg, or Greg and I, were going to get into the Giannis trade um, request, or was it a request or was it not a request? What Doc Rivers says one thing, Giannis seems to say another. What is what? I tend to believe that Giannis did request a trade or say to the Milwaukee, front office that look, what we have on roster, what we have on staff is not enough. We got to do better. We got to improve. I gave you a whole summer to do that, and you really haven't achieved that. Um, that's what I believe, and so people can deny and state their sources, but in my opinion, I believe that Giannis has already said that I don't think I can win another championship here, and I would like to explore my options somewhere else. And um, the two teams that I do think will fit, even though Giannis has pretty much pointed out New York as the premier location, the New York Knicks, and specifically, it will probably be the New York Knicks or the Atlanta Hawks. The New York Knicks or the Atlanta Hawks are the two destinations that I think would that I could see Giannis going to. Um, so you're talking about a Giannis Trae Young pairing potentially with Trae Young. He's out. with dealing with his injury right now, and Atlanta has a lot of pieces, a lot of young pieces to build around, and of course, they got picks as well. The Knicks, they just have to move contracts really if they want to achieve Giannis, but I'm not sure Giannis in a Knicks uniform is the best thing for the Knicks, uh, especially with a new coaching staff in place, and they're trying something completely new. I think they would like to see as an organization how they're structured right now today. I think they would like to see that in the playoffs to see, do we need to pursue Giannis exactly. Giannis, he dealing with his injury, his calf injury as well. So you kind of have to weigh, the pros and cons of making a move like that in the middle of the season. But he wants to go to New York most of the time. NBA stars get what they want, so he could potentially end up with New York. But I think the right move would be to uh, go with the Atlanta Hawks. Uh, a lot of teams, a lot of people, myself included, I would like to see him, maybe with the Spurs. I think that's a good fit, but I don't know. Uh, that might deter the growth of Wemby or Hanson. Not sure, but that's just my opinion. I disagree with Kendrick Perkins calling Giannis a coward. I kind of side with Richard Jefferson in that debate, that heated debate between them on their podcast. Uh, Giannis doesn't owe us anything. Giannis has always been a professional. He doesn't need to go out and be like a Jimmy Butler and say, "Oh, and pout and pretty much demand a trade by not showing effort or not showing joy on the court." He doesn't need to do that. That's just not him. It's not him. It's not Giannis to do that. Um, that's just something I don't expect Giannis to be, unprofessional about that. And it could be something, I believe that Ja is learning because he's, at some. But then when that Laker game, he was unhappy and he went and kind of pouted about it, was upset about it. And we're all allowed to make our mistakes, but I don't believe that um, Giannis is a coward for not just coming out and flat out saying, "Trade me to New York. I don't want to be," or saying, "I don't want to be in Milwaukee." To me, it just sounds like he's committed to Milwaukee because that's the uniform that he wears, and as long as he's in Milwaukee, he's going to give it 100%. That's just the way I see it. Another player in the trade rumors is Anthony Davis. And I don't understand why he is really on the trading block. I mean, I know he has his injuries from time to time, but they fired Nico because the home games just didn't feel like home games in Dallas. And I just don't understand, why would you want to trade AD now or this season without really seeing the fruition of Nico's vision, without really completing the mission of having AD, Kyrie, and Cooper Flag on the floor. It sucks that Lively is going to be out for the season, from what I understand. I think a report came out with his injury. So you're not able to see that. But I mean, this was your future big three in a sense, and you're essentially throwing that away. You're not even considering trading Kyrie or just blowing up the whole thing altogether. So I really don't understand that trade rumor of AD being traded. Um, I think the wise thing to do, in my opinion, will be to just let it play out for the season. Maybe address it in the off season. At least get them all on the floor together, uh, and just see if you. I mean, you trade them for Luca. You have a very, very, very small sample size of what they would have looked like. Uh, so that's my thoughts on that. LeBron James is still doing what LeBron James does. I have to retract and take back what I said about LeBron last in the last podcast with For the Love of the Game, where I kind of suggested that LeBron is silently protesting with the Lakers by not showing interest on the court, kind of, I guess, quietly giving JJ Redick a hard time on the court. Um, but the Lakers are number two in the West, and LeBron is being LeBron. You know, he's stepping in where he needs to step in, and he's doing things again that a 40-year-old normally doesn't isn't expected to do. So I mean, just the fact that he's out there playing, you know, we should appreciate the fact that he's out there doing what he's able to do. And hey, the Lakers are proving us wrong. We'll see if they're able to add in the trade deadline. DeAndre Ayton has been floated out there as a potential player that could be traded. Uh, so we'll see about that. Um, Next, I want to talk about uh, football, NCAA football. Um, I've said in the past about my thoughts on the playoff, how they need to have two different playoffs, one for the Power Five, one for the non-Power Five teams, because you truly don't have the 12 best teams. And I really, once that last week comes in, because it's already been discussed enough, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. That the last week of the championship week, we all know it's all about politics and it's all about who's going to make the most money in matchups when it comes to this 12-team playoff. We know JMU, we know Tulane, who are big underdogs, are less likely to win. We know Alabama, despite their uh, them pretty much fumbling the bag, dropping the ball in their championship game. I don't understand how they're not penalized for losing a game. BYU isn't penalized for losing, is penalized for losing, and Notre Dame, who for weeks have been in the tournament, in the playoffs, and then on the last week they're out. And then in the ACC, with the way they're structured, Duke and VVA is their championship matchup. Mo- it's it's ridiculous. The different standards and different uh, requirements that and opinions that this committee has for specific teams. But anyway, it is what it is, and Notre Dame saying that they don't want to play in a bowl game. Hey, I wouldn't want to play either if my expectation is to win a championship. I don't want to go to the Pop Tart Bowl or some made up bowl game when my focus has been on long to make it to the playoff and play in the tournament. So I don't fault Notre Dame at all. Notre Dame ain't the only team that has opted out of the bowl games. In fact, we have a lot of bowl. There are a lot of bowl games where you got some 5 and 7 teams in the bowl game. So you know, I mean, the quality of the bowl games just isn't that great. Is my point. But um, and the future of bowl games is now you know on the table to be changed. I look at it from the Tigers' perspective. Uh, it's an opportunity to reevaluate who you have on the roster who could potentially be great next year. Something for the fans to look forward to. So there are pros and cons to the bowl system, and certain teams use it to prepare for next season by playing, and some by not playing. So it works either way. Um, but to this recent news regarding Michigan and Sharon Moore, who gets fired from Michigan for inappropriate relationship with the secretary. Of course, just a really dumb decision by Sharon Moore. Uh, the lesson in all of this is what's done in the dark comes to the light, and social media and media in particular, we capitalize off of this, and we going deep into people's business. You lose your job, you get fired, then you get arrested. The details come out, pictures come out, names are exposed, and this has been going on for 2 or 3 years now. Sharon Moore has been in the spotlight or been under some type of investigation for 2 or 3 years. He could have been well and gone from the University of Michigan 2, 3 years ago. I, from what I see, but due process, Michigan followed that, which they're supposed to. But the ripple effects of this, though, is really more. He has a family. He has 3 children. It's the holiday season. Christmas is around the corner. This is a really traumatizing situation, and it's significant because we just had signing day. You had a lot of high school recruits signed to Michigan who has a great class coming in. Now it's pretty much wide open. Their star quarterback, I believe Underwood, has entered into the transfer portal, and it looks like he's more than likely going to transfer to LSU. We'll see. I don't know if that's true or not, but he has LSU ties. Uh, but a lot of families, a lot of recruits um, are now in a decision mode because of this move, because of his firing. And Memphis, Michigan now has to find the right coach quickly, and just do their process and do it the right way, get it right, so that they can get back on track. They've already fired the AD. So they got a lot of work to do, and they got to do it quickly. If they want to rebuild. I'm just thinking of the Penn State situation with uh with Franklin, and their recruiting class isn't great, because they didn't have a coach in place quickly or a coach in mind. And firing Franklin so early, or you could say mid-season, um, how they're kind of lacking right now. But Penn State and Michigan are two of the programs next year that we'll look at, and as teams that probably going to have a down year. Um, I also don't agree with Ryan Clark and his his statements. Uh, Pretty much basically saying that uh, he's made coaches, black coaches, harder for black coaches in the Power Five schools to obtain those head coaching jobs. And while there is a huge discrepancy, there aren't a lot, if any, African American coaches in the SEC, Big Ten, ACC. Um, I believe his statements have made it harder to hire African American coaches for those positions. And so while what he said may be his truth, or what he feels, or what his opinion is, I think his public statements regarding this, not, you know, he could have said this to more, on it. He could have brought more on his podcast and had this conversation, months down the road after everything is cleared up, and more is in a better place. But now it's almost like more is the poster child for of what not to do, or reasons not to hire a black coach. And and I just disagree with that. It's just, I don't think that's good for African Americans that are trying to excel in Power Five positions. So I disagree with that. I mean, you look at Sharon Moore. He probably wasn't the best coach for that team, but Michigan gave him the opportunity. He beat Ohio State. You know, there's some he won some big games for them. It's funny that he beat Ohio State, and the very next day, or right after that game, we were talking about Ryan Day being fired because he lost that game. And, that ended up being the year that Ohio State won the championship. But this whole time, Moore has pretty much been fighting for his career, you know, and with all these, things going on behind the scenes, there was obviously no surprise from the Michigan standpoint, from their administration, that he was fired, because he already had been suspended, already was part of the stealing signs debacle, the recruiting violations, and all of those things. So you know, it's really just a lesson to be learned from the Sharon Moore situation. And so uh, hopefully we learn the lesson. that what's done in the dark will come to light. African American coaches fall to temptation just like white coaches fall to temptation. But again, the lesson, whether you're caught, you know, or whether it's public or not public, what's done in the dark comes to the light. So hopefully that lesson is learned, not just for big schools, but for small schools, even all the way down to high school. Players, coaches, administration, what's done in the dark will eventually come to the light. Um, as far as a replacement for Michigan, people floated Kalen DeBoer as a potential replacement for him to leave Alabama on Twitter. And I don't believe everything that's on Twitter, but Kellen DeBoer uh, tweeted that he wasn't going to Alabama. People could say whatever they want to today, and tomorrow could be completely different. But you know, it's funny considering that Kiffin, who has always wanted the Alabama job, and now Kellen DeBoer is the odds of him taking the Michigan job. People suggest that he will take the job if offered. Um, so who's going to be the candidate for the Alabama job? And people will immediately bring up Kiffin's name and throw his name in the mix. And then it's just a snowball effect of who's going to coach who and what. And will Kiffin leave LSU? Later down the road, we'll never know until it actually happens, and chaos assumes itself. So I'm just gonna leave that alone, and whatever happens, happens. I hope, I wish the best for Ole Miss going forward, and I wish the best for LSU going forward. I'm not going to get into the mess between those two. Reagan and I, we kind of touched on it and discussed it already in our previous podcast. Go check that out. Uh, is there any forgiveness from Ole Miss in regards to Lane Kiffin? Uh, we'll see. Only time will tell. Time will tell. Does winning games heal all wounds? Time will tell. We'll see. Uh, we'll see how things play out in the coaching carousel in a couple of weeks. Other than that, we're looking forward to some the bowl games coming up, the playoffs coming up, and just interested to see who's going to come out of that bracket, that playoff bracket. Next, talk about the Memphis Tigers and their hire of um, Charles Huff. And I really like this hire. There are a whole lot of names, of course, in there. You had Mullen. You had um, Stein. You had. There was a whole bunch of names uh, floated around as the next potential guy uh, to lead the Tigers football program. But I think we landed on a good one with Charles Huff. He had some ringing endorsements with James Franklin. I'm sorry, for Virginia Tech and Nick Saban. Nick Saban said, "I couldn't be any happier for Charles and his family for him to take over at Memphis. Charles did a great job for us at Alabama and did a great job at Marshall and Southern Mississippi as well. I always wanted our coaches to grow and advance in the profession, and Charles has worked very hard to earn this opportunity. He puts his players in situations where they'll be successful and they love playing for him. I'm confident the Memphis community will love him just as much, and I wish him the best. And that comes from Nick Saban, as we know that Charles Huff was a assistant coach on his staff and is bringing the 4-2-5 defense, four defensive linemen, two linebacker, five defensive back system to the Memphis Tigers. They ran that system in Alabama, and as we know, Alabama has been dominant uh, in those championship runs. And Charles Huff is one of those guys that was working behind the scenes uh, during all that, during that championship run with Derrick Henry helping them win the Heisman Trophy. Also, I mentioned James Franklin. He says, "Congratulations to my friend Charles Huff on earning this incredible opportunity to lead an outstanding football program. Coach Huff's success across multiple stops speaks for itself. But what truly sets him apart is his character, integrity, and deep commitment to developing his student athletes as football players and as young men. The Memphis football program is gaining not only a winning coach, but an exceptional leader and role model. I have to I have no doubt that he will make an immediate and lasting impact in the Memphis community." And that comes from James Franklin, Virginia Tech head coach. Um, he comes with a lot of accolades. He's a winner. He's a great recruiter, one of the top recruiters in the country. Um, Again, he's going to bring the 4-2-5 defense. Spot the ball. Uh, we don't care who we play. We've been winning a lot of games. Now it's time to win championships. I'm sold. That's all I need to hear. Um, so go Tigers in that regard. I think Ed Scott's done a great job so far as AD offensively. Sounds like we're going to play fast, up tempo. Um, but I'm still curious to see what his staff is going to shape up. How the staff is going to shape up in the recruiting that he's going to do for the Memphis Tiger program. Already have a quarterback in AJ Hill, and I hope he gets every opportunity to be the starter because it's very rare for the Tigers to get a 4-star, 5-star quarterback that we got last year um, to stick around and stay with us. So I think that's if we can keep him and he's allowed to play in the ball game. I believe Maiden he put his name in the transfer portal, but I'm not sure if he is in like that transition of actually transferring. So I don't know, and we'll see. But I believe from a signing period standpoint, the players that have committed to the Tigers are pretty much solid with the Tigers, and so we'll see what additional recruits um, Coach Huff is able to get on board with us. Of course, with the rollout of the new renovations and new Simmons Bank, it's going to be an exciting time once the football season starts. So, love the hire, love the energy, and go Charles Huff. Go Tigers. I think we'll do just fine. Uh, of course, give him some grace. The first year. That's the one thing that we Memphis fans have to be patient. We got to be patient with our coaches. We have to be patient with our student athletes. Um, yes, we're paying them like professionals, but we still have to respect the work that they put in, show up for games, and support them. So, support the Tigers, win or lose, and I believe in time. Just Penny, Coach Huff, we're going to be on a consistent run of championships in the American Conference, and who knows what the future holds. I like the fact that Penny was there at the press conference and just his words to Huff being, if you love the city will love you back, which is definitely true. Um, so go Tigers. Also in football, three more things. There was a rumor that I heard about Marcus Freeman to the Giants, or there was interest to the Giants. Marcus Freeman being the Irish, the Notre Dame um, head coach. And, of course, going back to college football, the fact that Notre Dame is opted out of playing in the bowl game, it appears that Notre Dame has their focus aligned with retaining Marcus Freeman, as they should. And, I don't blame the Giants for going after Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman doesn't have any NFL experience, at least that I know of. But uh, when we look at Marcus Freeman and what he's done, it wouldn't. I say all that because it wouldn't surprise me if Marcus Freeman decides to leave uh, Notre Dame for an NFL job, which makes the coaching carousel absolutely crazy. But Marcus Freeman does a whole lot of things well. Um, will do well, I think, for the New York Giants. He's a tough defensive first personality. He's a culture builder. He's a leader. Players and former colleagues consistently describe him as authentic. He's calm under pressure, which is definitely something New York needs. Uh, build strong relationships, holds players accountable, and all of those traits translate well in the NFL, just as they do with college football. You got to have at least those traits at minimum. Uh, I think just to be a coach, period. But if we're looking for the Giants, and this is more like an NFL story as opposed to NCAA. This is just speculation. Um, but the Giants, the NFL, um, the New York Giants, they're looking for somebody that's a stable leader. After moving on from Brian Daboll, because I mean New York Giants, they've been immature, play immature all season, and look immature all season, and that shows on their record. So it's not a surprise to hear Marcus Freeman's name pop up when it comes to the New York Giants job opening. Uh, and I think it'll be a nice fit. I also think Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator for the 49ers, will be a good fit for the Giants as well. So that's just my opinion on the New York Giants opening and the fact that Marcus Freeman's name from Notre Dame, his name has come up. Also, with the Indianapolis Colts, them bringing on Philip Rivers, um, kind of, I don't know if you would call it a surprise. Cam Newton said that he's offended. Should he be offended that Philip Rivers got a call before him. And my response to that is you are what you prioritize. If you prioritize talking and being on podcasts, being on First Take, being on TV shows, and sporting your brand and things like that, then that's what people are going to take you for. So I don't think he should be offended. This is for one. I mean, the Philip Rivers has a relationship with the Indianapolis coaching staff, so I think the actual quote is that it's a real slap in the face um, for him not to be considered for a quarterback role or position on the team, considering his youth and his age. That being uh, Cam Newton. I think the real slap in the face, though, is the fact that is Richardson, who's been on IR, has been very quiet during this process, and it's pretty clear that the Indianapolis Colts have moved on from him. I think his days are over as a Colt, and Richards is more than likely he's going to be playing somewhere else next year, or I don't know, maybe he's in the backup role. Who knows? Uh, and I mean, it's not like Philip Rivers is going to be named the starter. He just signed on the practice squad. So we'll see where that ends up. Picks for this week in the NFL. Last night we saw the Falcons upset Tampa Bay, and I mean, and for a game that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers absolutely needed to have, they really blew it last night. Evans, I can understand. He's coming off injury. He's had years of injuries, and he's come up short, and just wants to be on the competing team and competing for championships. And now it kind of opens the door for Carolina in the NFC South division, but just a bad loss for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I suspected they would win that game. They obviously lost. Other games, though, we have Cleveland versus Chicago. I'm picking Chicago at home to win that game. I think Shador um, shows improvement, shows continues to show improvement. I think it'll be a tight game, but I think Chicago wins it. Being at home should be a very, very, very cold weather game. Um, but Chicago, they keep the win streak going. Then there's Arizona versus Houston. I think Arizona makes it interesting, but I think Houston in their defense, of course, dominates the conversation, and I think Houston wins that game. Washington and New York. I'm gonna go with Washington because Washington they're still playing hard, and New York they just seem to be making dumb play after dumb play, dumb decision, late in ball games or in critical moments of the game, and they're just proving themselves that they don't really seem to know what they're doing. So I'm picking Washington that game. I'm picking the Eagles versus the Raiders. This is a game that they cannot not only lose, but they can't look bad at the same time. So I'm picking the Eagles to beat the Raiders. Picking the Jaguars to uh, to beat the Jets. They cannot take the Jets lightly, though. The Jaguars are a team that we're not talking about a lot, but I think we'll be soon talking about. As soon as we start talking about them, is when they start faltering off. But they've kind of gone under the radar. but I think they get the win versus the Jets. The Ravens versus the Bengals. Again, it's going to be another tight one. This is like 50-50. Jamar Chase has his way with the Ravens. Uh, this is a tough one to just pick from. I'm just going to say the Bengals win this game because they're at home, and with Joe Burrow's comments about pretty much not being happy, or he needs to be happy in order to continue to play, um, and hinting at early retirement. I think you'll have a lot of fun this game versus the Ravens, whose defense has just underperformed all year. Um, Lamar Jackson not being 100%. I'm going with the Bengals. Chargers and Kansas City. Another tough one. We all know that the Chargers, their main objective is to pretty much muddy the game up, run the football, run the clock. Uh, I think this will be a tight game, but I do think Kansas City finds a way to win this game and try to keep their playoff hopes alive at home. I will be surprised if the Chargers won, but I think Kansas City wins this game. Game of the week, in my opinion. Here we got Buffalo versus New England. Uh, I'm gonna pick Buffalo to come out in this one and avenge their loss. It's gonna be a really good game. I'm picking, of course, Seattle over Indianapolis. The Packers versus Denver is an interesting one. Two offenses that, to me, have underperformed. It's going to be a defensive struggle. Both sides of the ball, both play really good defense. I'm going to go with the experience of the Green Bay Packers in this one. Then we have Detroit versus the Rams. The Rams being at home. I'm gonna go with the Rams. Uh, with the loss of Tampa Bay, I believe Carolina is going to come with a lot of energy versus the New Orleans Saints, and I think the Panthers are going to win that game versus the Saints. Titans versus San Francisco. I'm gonna go with San Francisco. Cowboys versus the Vikings. Again, I think this game's going to be tight as well. We're going up the Cowboys going up against the Flores defense, uh, and the Cowboys defense, who they kind of were a little uh, came in limping last week uh, versus Detroit uh, in that game. So I think with the extra time and them being fully healthy, I think they win that game. But it'll be extremely tight. Should be a really good game. Good game, primetime game. So I'm going with Dallas in that game. And then there's the Pittsburgh Steelers and Miami Dolphins on Monday night. I'm gonna go with the upset. I'm gonna go with Miami and pick Miami over the Steelers because the Steelers just they're just too inconsistent, in my opinion. Um, this would be the one opportunity I think for Tua to prove in Miami to prove that they can win in cold weather, though. So that I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna stick with my pick. I'm gonna say Miami. I think they squeeze out a victory here, upset the Pittsburgh Steelers, who need to win this game um, to stay on top of their division. And so those are my picks for this week, week 15 NFL. Uh, before I go, for the love of the game with Greg, a preview. Kind of want to highlight some of the breakout seasons of young players currently playing, and then also talk about team drama and maybe explore some NBA team trades, uh, namely Kaminga, Harden, Giannis, uh, maybe even Ja. We'll kind of discuss some of those things. Also, talk about how contenders are built. Talk about OKC. They're 24-1, and I mean, just an unbelievable run that they are on. Uh, Also, talk about players who um, who are just stat players. A definition of stat player: players that they put up a lot of numbers, but they're kind of just empty stats. For example, like Zach Levine, Jordan Poole, players like that. Players that are in organizations or NBA teams that really aren't going anywhere, but they're players. They have players that are putting up numbers that mean absolutely nothing. Um, but we're going to talk about that definition of empty stat players. Um, and I know that's going to be debatable, I believe, for the fans, but which is what we want. We know we want you to be engaged, to like and to comment and to participate in that conversation. Also talk about the debate officiating over game control. What does that look like? So these are just some different things that we'll discuss in what I call the new era of basketball. How contenders are built, empty stat players, and officiating versus game control. Um, and then we'll probably finally talk about legacy debates. Golden State, Chicago Bulls, and OKC and their dynasty. How they will be remembered and the amount of games they won, how they won them, and it's just the trend of positionless basketball. How did the Bulls do what they were able to do in their era? How did OKC in this current era, how they're able to win so many games at what they're doing specifically, and how Golden State did what they did when they won. They had their historic year. So it's a lot of exciting topics that we're going to talk about in our next For the Love of the Game podcast. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and end it for this episode, Mike Sports Podcast Show. Again, I'm your host, Mike. Please like, subscribe, follow me on Facebook and on YouTube. Look forward to talking to you guys next time. Please comment, interact. I love it. Um, I will respond to your comments. And if you have any questions or anything that you would like to see me talk about, or Greg and I to talk about, and for the love of the game, put those in your comments as well. Peace and love. I'm out.